Have you ever stopped to wonder why you were born into exactly the family you were born into, and why your father is the way he is, with strengths and wounds that shaped you so profoundly? Coincidence? Destiny? Or is something far deeper at work? Carl Jung, the revolutionary Swiss psychiatrist, pointed to a truth that can transform how you read your family story. Your soul did not meet your father by accident. There is an inner purpose here, a psychic assignment that most people never recognize. Prepare to confront unsettling insights about your own path. Why did you need exactly this father to evolve? What lesson did your soul choose to train through him? And here is the most disarming discovery. How your father may have been selected to become your hardest teacher, sometimes through pressure, distance, or conflict. If you're ready to decode the most intimate mystery of your family life, keep watching. What you're about to discover may shift the way you understand your past and the person you're becoming. The relationship with your father isn't just a personal story, it's a profound window into your own hidden nature. Jung discovered that we don't meet people randomly. We encounter those who activate what lies dormant within us. Your father became the first man in your life to trigger something essential about who you are. Think about the qualities in your father that stirred the strongest reactions in you. The traits that made you feel most uncomfortable, angry, or even afraid weren't random irritations. They were showing you parts of yourself you hadn't yet recognized or accepted. This is what Jung called the shadow, the collection of traits and potential we push away from our conscious identity. When your father displayed weakness, perhaps it activated your own fears of vulnerability. When he showed ambition, maybe it triggered your unrealized desires. When he expressed anger, it possibly revealed the buried emotions you hadn't allowed yourself to feel. The intensity of your response wasn't just about him, it was your soul recognizing something familiar yet unacknowledged. Your soul chose this specific father precisely because his character would activate these hidden aspects within you. Think of it as spiritual homework. The universe doesn't waste opportunities for growth. If you needed to develop courage, you might have chosen a father whose actions forced you to stand up for yourself. If you needed to learn compassion, you may have selected one whose suffering opened your heart. The father-child bond contains something magical beyond the ordinary parent-child relationship. Jung observed that within families, unconscious elements are exchanged and mirrored in ways we rarely recognize consciously. The way your father spoke to you, how he handled difficulty, his approach to work, how he loved or withheld, these became internal templates in your psyche long before you could analyze them. Notice what parts of yourself awakened through his presence. Was it determination, creativity, emotional depth, or perhaps the spaces he left empty taught you to fill yourself with self-reliance? Whatever the lesson, it wasn't accidental. Your soul chose this curriculum carefully. Some of us receive fathers who modeled what to embrace, while others received examples of what to transform. Either way, the shadow connection served its purpose. The father who disappointed you may have been chosen by your soul to awaken your capacity for forgiveness. The distant father might have been selected to activate your ability to find wholeness within yourself rather than seeking it outside. Jung understood that our deepest wounds often reveal our greatest gifts. The very pain, points in your relationship with your father, point to the essential work your soul came here to do. When you react strongly to his behavior, pause and ask, what is this showing me about myself that I need to see? The shadow isn't only negative, it also contains golden potential and untapped gifts. Perhaps your father carried talent, wisdom, or strength that you haven't yet claimed in yourself. His most admirable qualities might be dormant in you, waiting to be recognized and integrated. Your soul chose him not just to challenge you, but to show you possibilities for who you might become. By understanding this shadow connection, you begin to see your father not merely as a person who helped create you physically, but as a mirror reflecting aspects of your soul that needed awakening. This perspective transforms resentment into recognition, turning pain into purpose. The difficulties weren't meaningless. They were carefully selected catalysts for your development. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Your soul's choice of your father wasn't about finding perfect parenting. It was about finding perfect growth opportunities. The father who triggered your insecurities was helping you identify where healing was needed. The father who pushed you too hard was activating your capacity for self-definition. The father who seemed emotionally unavailable was initiating you into emotional self-sufficiency. As Jung discovered, this relationship serves as a doorway to your authentic self. By exploring your deepest reactions to your father, both positive and negative, you uncover the map of your own inner landscape. The journey isn't about blaming or idealizing him. It's about recognizing how this primal relationship reveals your soul's intentions for this lifetime. The connection with your father goes deeper than just one lifetime or one relationship. Jung recognized that we inherit not only physical traits, but also psychological patterns that have been repeating for generations. Your soul didn't just choose your father as an individual. It chose an entire ancestral lineage with specific themes to resolve. These ancestral patterns flow like underground rivers through family systems. The way men in your family handle anger, success, failure, love, and loss creates templates that shape behavior across generations. Jung called this the collective unconscious, the shared psychological inheritance that influences us beyond our personal experiences. Your father didn't raise you in isolation. He carried the weight of his father's approach and his grandfather's before him. The way he spoke to you when you made mistakes may echo how his father spoke to him decades earlier. The emotional walls he built might reflect protection mechanisms learned from watching the men before him struggle with vulnerability. By choosing your specific father, your soul selected a particular set of ancestral patterns to witness, experience, and ultimately transform. Notice the repeated themes in your family's story. Is there a pattern of abandonment that appears generation after generation? A tendency toward addiction, a habit of emotional distance or explosive anger? These aren't coincidences. They're unhealed wounds seeking resolution. The soul chooses these patterns not as punishment, but as opportunity. Jung understood that what remains unconscious continues to control us. By making these patterns conscious through your experience with your father, you gain the power to change what might have seemed like inevitable family destiny. Think of yourself as a potential pattern breaker. Your soul chose to enter this specific lineage because you carried the capacity to recognize and transform what others could not see. The very qualities that made your relationship with your father difficult might have been exactly what you needed to finally break chains that have bound your family for generations. Jung observed that what we don't transform, we transmit. The unhealed wounds, the unexpressed grief, the unacknowledged trauma, all of it passes silently from father to child until someone becomes conscious enough to stop the cycle. Your soul may have chosen your father because you were ready to be that conscious link. Notice how you've already begun this work. Perhaps you've questioned traditions that never made sense to you. Maybe you've chosen different ways to express emotion than the men before you. Possibly you've committed to a level of presence with your own children that your father couldn't offer. These aren't rejections of your lineage. They're the fulfillment of your soul's intention to heal it. The ancestral healing doesn't require rejection of your father or your heritage. Instead, it asks for integration, taking what was valuable, releasing what was harmful, and creating something new. Jung called this individuation, becoming fully yourself while honoring your roots. Your father served as both a carrier of these patterns and a teacher showing you what needed to change. The aspects of him that frustrated you most pointed directly to the ancestral wounds seeking healing through your awareness. His strengths showed you what to preserve and build upon. This perspective transforms your family story from random circumstance to meaningful journey. The difficulties weren't pointless suffering, they were the soul's curriculum, carefully chosen for what you needed to learn and what you could ultimately contribute to your lineage's evolution. Before you entered this life, your soul made agreements. Jung spoke of a profound psychological principle that resembles a spiritual contract between souls. Not a literal document, but a deep unconscious understanding about what each person would teach the other. This unconscious contract with your father outlined specific lessons your soul wanted to master in this lifetime. Think about the most challenging aspects of your relationship with your father. These weren't random difficulties, they were carefully selected curriculum points. If your father was emotionally distant, perhaps your soul chose to learn self-validation. If he was controlling, maybe you contracted to develop healthy boundaries and personal authority. If he was unreliable, you might have agreed to cultivate inner stability that no one could shake. The contract works both ways. Your father's soul also signed up for what you would teach him. The relationship created a dance of mutual growth, even when it looked messy on the surface. Jung recognized that relationships serve as the primary vehicle for psychological development. The father-child bond creates one of life's most powerful classrooms. Pay attention to recurring themes in your interactions. Did your father consistently push you toward achievement? This wasn't just his personal preference, it was part of your shared contract to develop your potential. Did he struggle to express love verbally? This may have been designed to help you learn to recognize love in its many forms beyond words. The unconscious contract often includes specific wounds to heal. If your father carried unresolved trauma, your soul may have chosen him knowing that his wounds would activate your own healing journey. Jung understood that we are drawn to relationships that bring our deepest issues to the surface. Your father's limitations weren't failures, they were catalysts for your evolution. Look for the wisdom hidden within the challenges. The father who worked constantly and missed your childhood events might have been fulfilling his part of the contract to teach you about presence and priorities. The father who struggled with addiction might have been showing you the power of compassion and the importance of emotional honesty. This unconscious agreement operates beyond the rational mind. It functions at the level of soul, where growth matters more than comfort. Jung observed that meaningful development rarely happens when things are easy. The contract ensures you receive exactly the challenges needed for your specific journey. The beauty of understanding this soul contract lies in the shift from victim to co-creator. You weren't randomly assigned a difficult father. Your soul participated in choosing these specific lessons. This perspective transforms resentment into recognition of purpose. The relationship wasn't something that happened to you. It was something that happened for you. Even when the contract included pain, it served evolution. Jung noted that our suffering often contains the seeds of our greatest gifts. The father who couldn't give what you needed may have awakened your ability to nurture others from a place of genuine understanding. The father who criticized might have activated your determination to prove your worth, developing strengths you wouldn't have discovered otherwise. The contract includes not just what you'll learn, but also how you'll transform that learning into wisdom. Your soul didn't choose these lessons randomly. It selected precisely what would help you fulfill your larger purpose. The qualities developed through your relationship with your father become tools for your unique contribution to the world. Notice how the contract's lessons continue to unfold throughout your life. Long after childhood, the themes established in that primal bond keep appearing in new forms, offering deeper levels of mastery. Jung recognized that significant relationships continue their inner work even when the outer connection changes or ends. The agreement transcends time, physical presence, and even death. This understanding brings compassion, both for yourself and your father. You can begin to see how each of you was doing your best with the sole curriculum you'd chosen together. The contract wasn't about perfection, it was about growth. Even the mistakes and missed opportunities served the larger purpose of awakening consciousness. One of Jung's most profound discoveries was the power of projection, how we unconsciously place parts of ourselves onto others, especially those closest to us. Your father became the first significant male screen for these projections, catching the images of your inner world that you couldn't yet recognize as your own. When you look at your father, you never see him completely objectively. You see him through the lens of your own psychological makeup. The parts of him that trigger you most intensely often connect to disowned aspects of yourself. Jung called this mirroring, the process where our relationships reflect back parts of our psyche we haven't yet integrated. Notice what qualities in your father create the strongest emotional charge, whether positive or negative. These responses reveal more about your inner landscape than about him. The father whose weakness frustrated you might be mirroring your own unacknowledged vulnerability. The father whose strength intimidated you might reflect power you haven't claimed. This mirroring creates a fascinating psychological dance. If your father displayed rage that frightened you as a child, your fear might have been about more than just his emotion. It could have been your soul recognizing your own unexpressed anger. If his ambition impressed you, this admiration might reflect potential you hadn't yet developed in yourself. The intensity of your reaction signals the importance of what's being mirrored. Jung observed that we respond most strongly to what touches our own unconscious material. A mildly annoying habit in someone else creates a small reaction, but behaviors that connect to our deepest wounds or unrealized potential trigger powerful responses. Your father served as the first major mirror in your life, reflecting aspects of your masculine energy regardless of your gender. For men, he became the primary model for how to be male in the world. For women, he shaped expectations about masculine energy both internally and in relationships. This mirroring created templates that influenced your entire life. Understanding projection transforms blame into awareness. When you feel judgment toward your father, ask, "What part of myself am I seeing in him?" When you feel admiration, consider, "What excellence within me responds to this quality?" This shift from projection to recognition begins the journey of reclaiming your wholeness. The mirroring between father and child goes beyond behaviors to include wounds and healing potential. Jung recognized that unhealed trauma seeks resolution through relationships. Your father's wounds might have mirrored your own soul's unfinished business from beyond this lifetime. The specific hurts you experienced with him weren't random, they reflected precise healing opportunities. This mirroring process serves soul growth by making the unconscious conscious. When your father's behavior triggered pain, it wasn't just creating wounds, it was bringing awareness to places that needed healing. The father who couldn't listen well wasn't just failing to hear you, he was highlighting your soul's need to develop authentic voice and self-expression. The father whose approval you craved wasn't just withholding validation, he was mirroring your need to develop self-acceptance independent of external confirmation. The father who abandoned wasn't just leaving, he was activating your journey toward inner completeness. Jung understood that our deepest wounds point directly to our greatest healing potential. Projection and mirroring continue throughout life, long after childhood. Notice how your reactions to your father might still shape how you respond to authority figures, male energy, or your own masculine aspects. These patterns don't disappear, they transform as you become conscious of them. This awareness creates choice where once there seemed only reaction. When you recognize projection, you can ask, is this really about him, or is it about something in me? This question begins the process of taking back your projections and owning all parts of yourself, both the qualities you admire and those you've rejected. The ultimate gift of understanding these projections is the retrieval of your wholeness. Jung called this process individuation, becoming fully yourself by recognizing and integrating all aspects of your psyche. Your father served as a crucial mirror in this journey, reflecting back parts of yourself that needed acknowledgement and integration. Beyond your personal relationship with your biological father exists what Jung identified as the father archetype, a universal pattern in the collective unconscious that influences how we experience masculine energy. This inner father exists within each of us, regardless of our actual experience with our physical fathers, and understanding this distinction opens powerful doors to healing and wholeness. The archetypal father represents guiding principles, protection, authority, spiritual connection, and worldly wisdom. It embodies the energy that establishes boundaries, makes laws, builds structures, and creates order from chaos. This universal pattern appears across cultures and throughout history, in stories, myths, and religions, from Zeus and Odin to modern father figures in literature and film. Your personal experience with your father colored how you relate to this archetype, but it didn't create or destroy it. If your father was absent or harmful, you may have developed a wounded relationship with the father archetype, but the potential for connection with healthy masculine energy remains intact within your psyche. Jung recognized that we can heal our relationship with this archetypal energy even when our personal father relationships were broken. Think about the difference between your father as a person and the qualities of ideal fathering. The gaps between them show where healing is possible. The real power comes when you realize you don't need to wait for your actual father to change in order to develop a healthy relationship with the inner father energy. This internal connection remains available regardless of your external circumstances. The inner father provides psychological resources that sustain you throughout life. It offers internal guidance when you face difficult decisions. It provides a sense of protection when you encounter challenges. It helps establish healthy boundaries in relationships. It connects you to traditions and wisdom beyond your personal experience. Jung observed that developing a conscious relationship with this archetypal energy creates psychological stability. Many psychological difficulties stem from a disconnection from this inner father energy. Without this relationship, you might struggle with self-discipline, boundaries, or recognizing your own authority. You might seek father figures in inappropriate relationships or reject masculine principles altogether. Understanding that this archetypal connection exists independently from your personal father creates freedom to heal these patterns. Reclaiming the inner father begins with recognizing where you've been seeking external father figures to fulfill this archetypal need. Notice whether you look for excessive approval from authority figures. Pay attention to whether you reject all authority as a reaction to father wounds. These patterns reveal where healing is needed in your relationship with the inner father. The journey toward wholeness involves separating your biological father from the archetypal father energy. You can honor the gifts your personal father provided while acknowledging where he fell short. You can recognize his humanity, complete with limitations and wounds, while still connecting to the broader father energy that transcends any individual expression of it. This separation process creates freedom. You're no longer waiting for your actual father to become something he may not be capable of being. you can develop a relationship with the archetypal father that provides what you need psychologically and spiritually, regardless of what happened in your personal history. Jung found this inner work often creates surprising shifts in outer relationships as well. Connecting with the inner father happens through deliberate psychological work. Pay attention to father figures that appear in your dreams. They often reveal how you're relating to this archetype. Notice which father figures in culture, history, or spiritual traditions resonate with you. These attractions point toward aspects of the father archetype seeking expression in your life. As you develop this relationship, you become less dependent on external validation from authority figures. You develop an internal sense of guidance that helps navigate life's complexities. You recognize your own authority in appropriate contexts. You establish healthier boundaries in relationships. These changes reflect a maturing relationship with the father archetype that sustains psychological well-being. This inner connection also transforms how you relate to your actual father. When you're no longer asking him to fulfill archetypal needs he may be unable to meet, you can see him more clearly as a human being. This shift often allows for genuine connection, based on who he actually is, rather than who you needed him to be. Jung observed that this psychological development frequently heals family relationships in unexpected ways. The reclamation of the inner father ultimately contributes to psychological wholeness. Jung understood that integration of all archetypal energies, both masculine and feminine, creates internal balance and harmony. By healing your relationship with the father archetype, you restore access to essential psychological resources that support your journey through life. The journey with your father ultimately leads toward integration, bringing together all you've learned into a cohesive wholeness that Jung called individuation. This final stage transforms the relationship from a source of unresolved emotions into a foundation for authentic selfhood. The very challenges that once caused pain become catalysts for profound psychological development. Integration begins with acceptance, not resignation to what shouldn't have happened, but clear-eyed recognition of what actually did occur. Jung emphasized that psychological healing requires facing reality without illusion. By acknowledging your father exactly as he was, with his limitations, wounds, gifts, and capabilities, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of wishing things had been different. This acceptance doesn't mean approving harmful behavior or denying legitimate grief. It means recognizing that your soul chose this specific father relationship precisely because it would create the conditions needed for your evolution. The challenges weren't random misfortune. They were carefully selected curriculum for your particular journey. Notice what strengths developed through your father relationship. Did his absence teach you self-reliance? Did his criticism spark determination? Did his support nurture confidence? Even difficult relationships develop qualities that serve your larger purpose. Jung recognized that our most powerful gifts often emerge from our deepest wounds. Integration involves retrieving projections you've placed on your father. When you see him as all-powerful, all-terrible, or all-anything, you're likely projecting parts of yourself onto him. As you recognize these projections and reclaim them as aspects of your own psyche, your father becomes neither villain nor hero, simply human, like yourself. This psychological reclamation creates inner wholeness. The parts of yourself you've seen reflected in him, whether qualities you've rejected or idealized, return to your conscious awareness. Jung observed that this integration process reduces the emotional charge around the father relationship because you're no longer using him as a repository for disowned aspects of yourself. Forgiveness emerges naturally from this understanding, not as a forced act of will, but as recognition that both you and your father were doing your best with the consciousness available to you. This forgiveness liberates energy that once fueled resentment or disappointment. making it available for creative expression of your authentic self. The integration process transforms not only how you relate to your father, but how you experience yourself. When you've integrated the father relationship, you no longer need to organize your identity around either conforming to or rebelling against his influence. You become free to choose your own path based on inner guidance rather than reaction to his presence. This freedom creates the possibility of genuine relationship, whether with your living father or with his memory if he has passed. When you're no longer using the relationship to work out unresolved psychological material, you can connect from a place of authenticity rather than unconscious need. Jung noted that this shift often creates surprising healing, even in relationships that seemed permanently broken. Integration also affects how you express father energy in your own life. If you're parenting, you bring more consciousness to which patterns you continue and which you transform. If you're mentoring others, you offer guidance tempered with awareness of the responsibility this influence carries. If you're leading in any context, you use authority with mindfulness of its impact. The ultimate gift of integration is congruence, internal harmony that allows authentic expression in the world. Jung recognized this as the goal of psychological development. When you've integrated the father relationship, you no longer spend energy maintaining defenses against painful emotions or compensating for perceived inadequacies. This psychological freedom becomes the foundation for genuine contribution to life. The journey doesn't require your father to change or even to participate. This integration happens within your own consciousness as you make meaning from the relationship you experienced. Jung found that this inner work often creates space for actual relationship to evolve in unexpected ways. But the psychological development proceeds regardless of external circumstances. As integration deepens, you may discover a surprising truth. The very aspects of the father relationship that caused greatest pain often catalyzed your most significant growth. The father who couldn't provide what you needed may have activated self-reliance that serves your life purpose. The father who challenged you inappropriately might have sparked determination essential to your path. This recognition transforms the narrative from victimhood to conscious participation in your soul's journey. You begin to see how your soul chose this specific father relationship not as punishment, but as curriculum, perfectly designed for your evolution. The difficulties weren't meaningless suffering. They were purposeful challenges, creating exactly the conditions your soul needed for its unique development. Integration ultimately reveals the wisdom of your soul's choice. The father you received, with all his strengths and limitations, provided precisely the catalyst needed for becoming fully yourself. Through this relationship, your soul created the conditions for developing qualities, insights, and capabilities essential to your purpose in this lifetime. What once seemed like random circumstance reveals itself as meaningful journey toward wholeness. In the quiet moments when you look into the mirror of your life, remember that your soul's choice of your father was no accident. It was a deliberate selection of the exact teacher you needed. The wounds that still ache, the lessons that shaped you, the strengths you've developed in response, all were part of a sacred curriculum designed specifically for your evolution. As Jung understood, the greatest gift hidden within this relationship is the invitation to become not who your father wanted you to be, but who your soul always intended you to become. The journey with your father, in all its complexity, wasn't just about him. It was always about unveiling your authentic self.